Thanks, Brad. Uh, well, we just got done with 2 weeks of Maker Camp, and it has been an amazing 2 weeks. Between the 2 weeks, we've had about 180 young people here to make and create with their hands, and it has been such an incredible joy for me to stand in front of those kids and make and create alongside of them. So here's oops, going the wrong way there. Here's a picture of all of our kids from last week for Maker Camp. And wow, we created some awesome stuff, and I am so thankful for all the station leaders and crew leaders that poured themselves in. We did electronics and soldering. We did painting, and we did cooking and videos. We made an animated LED and printmaking. We made speakers out of mason jars. We did wind chimes and cooking and sewing and embroidery. We made a vortex air cannon, which was super fun. And so there were a lot of people who poured themselves into the week. And so I'd just like to ask that if you took part in leading Maker Camp, whether as a station leader or a crew leader in Maker Camp Junior or Maker Camp, or as a volunteer or an intern, I'd like to just ask that you stand up so that we can recognize you. Let's give them a big round of applause. And I just want you to look around, and you guys can go ahead and sit down, and look at how many people stood up. This was an endeavor that I think involved more than 100 adults and youth in leading this program. If you were a participant in Maker Camp or Maker Camp Junior, I want you to stand up, and I want to give you a round of applause. I want to say that without you guys participating, Maker Camp would have been really, really boring. So I'm so thankful for all the people that came to participate and to lead. What's interesting is spending a week with young people creating and making reminds me of awe and wonder. It's interesting, if you've ever had the experience of going to a museum and seeing it through the eyes of a child, kids know how to have awe and wonder. And I think sometimes as adults, we've let the awe and wonder kind of get beaten out of us. And so I had the incredible joy of just sitting down and creating with kids and seeing creation through their eyes. And coming with a posture of awe at what God has created. Now, when you spend so much time with kids creating, it kind of leads to a natural question. As we make things and make things come alive, it leads you to ask the question, well, how did we get made? How did we come alive? And that's a profound question to ask. Ravi Zacharias, a Christian philosopher, says that every person must wrestle with 4 questions. The question of origin, the question of meaning, the question of morality, and the question of destiny. And this morning, I'd like for us to wrestle with the question of origin. How did we get here? Just stop and think what an incredible miracle it is that we are conscious. Think about what an incredible miracle it is that I'm speaking to you in ideas, and you are hearing those ideas and creating thoughts and ideas out of that. That is an amazing miracle that happens every day. This is kind of weird for a pastor to say, but for me, faith is pretty hard. And when I think about our origin, I have to kind of hold 2 things in tension. On one side, it is the case that I live in awe of creation. This is an amazing place. It is an incredible place that we live. And I live in awe of us and animals and trees and nature. And then at the same time, there is a tension of how did we get here? How did we come to be? And is it the case that we got here through science, through evolution? And so I hold those things in tension. I just want to share a story. A couple years ago, I was at Washington Elementary, and I had this 15,000-volt Jacob's Ladder thing. We actually had it here for Maker Camp, but we had it turned off because it kept catching on fire. Those kind of things happen at Maker Camp. Somebody's like, it's smoky, and I'm like, well, just turn it off and turn it back on after I finish the smoking. I had this thing, and this girl was watching it, and it was like a career night thing. So she came up to me, and she said, well, what do you do? And I handed her 2 business cards. One of them was my engineering business card, and one of them was my business card as a pastor here at the river. And she sat there, and she looked at my 2 business cards, and she looked at me, and she said, well, which one are you? And I said, well, I'm both. And she said, no, you need to pick one. And she looked at me quizzically and said, how can you be both a person of faith and a person of science? And that breaks my heart. We live in such a polarized world where you either have to be a person of faith or a person of science, where you either have to be against that political party or for that political party. I think that's so true in the question of origin. You either are a person of faith or you are a person of science. And I think we live in a world that says, well, you need to pick one. You just can't be both. And Brad has been teaching over the past several weeks about a third way. And I wonder this morning if we can ponder a third way in the question of origin. And so I'd like to ask your permission to dive into that. And, I know that when there's a tall, skinny, weird-looking white guy on the stage, you're like, is he going to tell me what to believe? Because I don't know if I'm going to agree with him. And I just want to tell you right now, instead of telling you what to believe, I'd like to ask some questions. And I'd like to get you thinking. And my hope is that today you'll go home and you'll ponder one of the most important questions, the question of origin. So in order to do that, I want to look at this from a perspective of being an engineer. So now, if you know anything about engineers think that we have the best profession. And some people think that it's arrogant for us to say that, but I don't really think the truth is that arrogant. So, mathematicians just sit around and think. Physicists just sit around and look at stuff. Biologists take things apart, and they don't even put it back together. If you've ever dissected a frog, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But engineers, we make stuff. We are putter-togethers. Biologists are taker-aparters. Engineers are putter-togethers. We make and create intelligence. And I've always thought it surprising that biologists, kind of think that they have a corner on the question of origin. But all they have to do is take things apart. It looks like it'd be pretty easy for us to show up through a random process if all you did was sit around all day and take things apart. Now, I just offended all the biologists here. If you want to file a complaint, my complaint email is brad@theriver.org. So, anyway, engineers, we are putter-togethers, right? And every single day we try to create intelligence. And I'll tell you right now, anybody that's an engineer knows that if you get one drop of randomness, your project won't work. And so we are constantly trying to squish and squash randomness and make everything as orderly as possible. And so for an engineer like me, a putter-togetherer, to think that all of this came about through randomness kind of blows my mind. Because I've seen what randomness does to my projects, and it ain't pretty. And so again, I'm living in this tension of saying, man, everything here looks as if it was created, as if it was designed, as if it was invented. And yet, I have to give it to biologists, but they have a pretty good case for evolution. The physical record sure does look like we evolved. So I live in that stress and that tension. And I wonder if in that tension there isn't a third way. So let me give you a musing on a third way through a story. Now, I'm not pretending like I know what our origin is, because I don't. But I'd like to just give you some musings to think about it. And so I'm going to tell 2 parables. So the first parable is of an inventor, okay? So let's just say that I made a robot, okay? This is my robot. If you can't see it, it's because you're not looking hard enough. My robot, I don't know, let's say that it's really smart, you can talk to it, and it'll do your dishes and, I don't know, blow dry your hair and put fingernail polish on, okay? So here's my robot, and I come over to your house and I say, hey, buddy, I want to show you my robot. And I say, let's eat dinner, and then it'll do your dishes, and, if your hair's wet, it'll blow dry your hair. And then I say, well, what do you think about my robot? What do you think about me as an inventor? And my guess is you'd probably say, oh, that's a pretty cool invention. You're a pretty good inventor. And I would say, yeah, I spent years like soldering it and putting it together and programming it and all this stuff. And, you'd probably say, oh, that's cool. My guess is, however, that you probably would not fall to your knees and worship me as the greatest inventor of all time, right? Well, let me tell a second story. Let's say there was another inventor, and he came over to your house, and he brought a robot. It's pretty much the same robot. It's this robot that, will do your dishes and talk to you and blow dry your hair and put on your fingernail polish. And he brings it over to your house, and you say, oh, that's pretty cool, but I know this other guy that did that, and he's weird, but you're probably weird too. He says, well, I want to tell you how I made this robot. And so he begins to describe the process of how he made this robot. Turns out he's a very old inventor. And so he says, well, 100 years ago, I went to the top of a big hill, like a very big hill, okay? And he said, when I got to the top of the hill, what I did was I took some sand, and I very strategically poured out some sand at the top of this hill. And then I took some particles of iron ore and just kind of sprinkled it on the ground in exactly the right place. And I took some organic polymers, and I kind of spread them out and put the raw ingredients in exactly the right place. And then this inventor said, I calculated the wind and the rain. I figured out exactly where the lightning would strike. I calculated how the grass would grow. And then the inventor told you that instead of sitting down and soldering on it, he went to a neighboring hill and just rested and just watched. And as he watched, those raw ingredients began to slide down the hill. The lightning struck and fused that sand into silicon, which made chips and stuff. And the rain came down and rusted, and there was this chemical composition happening with the iron ore. And as it slid down the hill, it looked like a mess. And maybe he shows you the stop motion video, and you can see it coming down, and it doesn't look like it's turning into anything. It's like got these weird appendages coming out and stuff. And you're like, this is a mess. What's going to happen? And yet the inventor was sitting watching, knowing full well what was about to come to pass. And so after the course of 100 years, after this thing looked like a useless mess, it got to the bottom of the hill. And lo and behold, the rain and the wind and the elements and the lightning had formed this into a robot that was capable of talking and doing the dishes and blow drying your hair. Now, let's say that the inventor came and described to you how he made that robot. If that inventor described to me how he made that robot, I think I would fall to my knees and worship him as the greatest inventor of all time. What if the greatest inventor of all time took a bunch of raw ingredients and stuffed them into an infinitesimally small space some 15 billion years ago and calculated exactly the right constants, exactly the right equations, fine-tuned everything, and then let go and stood back to rest and watch. And as that mess of particles exploded, if you had been there, you would say, that's a mess. That's a mess. That won't amount to anything. And yet the great inventor stood back and watched it expand into stars and galaxies and planets. Eventually, one planet started revolving around a sun, and the planet was a primordial mess. Volcanoes and clouds. It looked as if it was nothing special. And yet in the midst, some billion years ago, in the midst of that primordial mess, what if these stupid little creatures started to pop up? Bacteria and amoebas, things that could barely even see. If you had been an observer, you wouldn't have thought they were impressive at all. But they began to grow and evolve. And eventually, at the end of this project, the inventor came to see his greatest invention. And he took joy in making it. You see, he said that all the plants and animals, all the creation of the world was good. But when he got to his final creation, he said it was, kids, what is it? Very good. Very good. Now, like I said, I don't know how we got here, but I wonder if there wouldn't be more awe and wonder in a process like setting a bunch of raw ingredients up and then watching it go. I think sometimes we think the most impressive thing is to clap your hands and make an awesome thing just appear like magic. But I'll tell you what, if God put all that stuff and packed it in and figured everything out in advance and then just watched it go, that is the mark of an incredible, mind-blowing inventor. And maybe that's the way we came to pass. I don't know. If it is the case that there is a great inventor who invented us, then I think that you ought to be able to get to know the inventor by studying her invention, right? The character of an inventor can be seen through her invention. And this week in Maker Camp, we have been exploring acoustics and sound. I spent 15 years of my engineering career working in acoustics, first in medical ultrasound and then later in hearing aids. And man, I'll tell you, I have been just, over that course of that time, just awestruck by the way we have been designed acoustically, by the way that we hear and speak. And I think there's all sorts of things you can learn about the inventor by investigating his invention. And there's all sorts of things I think we can learn about God by looking at how we hear and how we communicate. So let me give you some examples. I've always been fascinated by the speed of sound. And that sounds kind of like a boring thing. The speed of sound, so it's just a number, 767 miles an hour. Or if you are a person who uses real units, 343 meters per second. I have always been fascinated about this constant. And so I built this thing to show you the speed of sound. So here there is an LED runway. And right here there is a microphone. And this microphone picks up sounds. And these LEDs turn on by color depending on the pitch of the sound. Now, here's what's cool. These LEDs turn on sequentially at the speed of sound, okay? Now, sequentially they turn on at the speed of sound, going down the north line, and then at that end over there, oh, Siri wants in on this. Awesome. Siri, what is the speed of sound? Oh, okay, Google. Oh, it didn't work. All right. Sequentially, these LEDs are turning on at the speed of sound. Now, on the other side, there is a microphone in that line. And so when this picks up the sound propagates to that wall, bounces off that wall, and the microphone on the other side hears it, and then launches the LEDs sequentially turning on back this way at the speed of sound. And so if you stand here, you can see a delay between when this light turns on and when this light turns on, and that delay is the speed of sound. So let's try it. You ready? So I'm going to clap here, and you're going to see it turn on at the speed of sound and then come back. You ready? Could you see it? Could you see it? Okay, shh. So that's pretty fast, but let me slow it down a little bit so you kind of get the point. Here is 1/5 the speed of sound, okay? Do you see that? And then here is 1/10 the speed of sound, 76 miles an hour, which is how fast I drive. See that? Now, here's why I'm so interested in the speed of sound. And here's why I think it's so fascinating. If you couldn't see that, by the way, I'd encourage you to go up and play with it afterwards. You can hit the button and clap and make annoying noises into it. So here's why I'm so fascinated about the speed of sound. You see, the speed of sound is perfectly tuned for communication. If the speed of sound were a little bit slower, we would have all these problems with echoes. Have you ever gotten a bad phone line and it echoes? And then when it echoes, you try to talk and it's like, blah, 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 it totally screws your brain up. You know what I'm talking about? If the speed of sound were slower, life would always be like that. If the speed of sound were faster, it would dramatically change the way we communicate. And I want to demonstrate what it would be like if the speed of sound were faster. Can I do that? Okay, this is like a participatory thing. Can I do that? Yes. All right. Once again, why I like kids. They actually answer your questions. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I have this special speaker here, and I have a song. And it's a song that has hand motions, and when you hear it, you're going to know what the hand motions are, and I want you to do the hand motions, okay? So this actually requires doing stuff, participatory. So when you hear the song, do the hand motions. Now, if you can't hear the song, don't do the hand motions, okay? All right. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. Okay. No, can you hear that? No. It's pretty funky, huh? When can you hear it? Only when it's pointed directly at you, right? Well, that's interesting. Let me just unplug it and play it on my phone. Don't worry, it plays on repeat. We can just spend the rest of the time listening. So here you go. This is this really interesting speaker. It's called a parametric speaker, and it actually uses some really cool high-tech stuff. Come and ask me afterwards how it works. I actually worked on some of this technology back in the early 2000s. It only sends sound in one direction. So you can only hear it when it's pointing directly at you. And the reason it does that is because it uses ultrasound. You know, bats use ultrasound for echolocation, and the way it works is wherever they're pointing, that's where the sound goes. Now, if we communicated like that, I could come over here, and me and Steve could get together, and we could complain about Brad over there, and Brad wouldn't be able to hear us because I could send a message just to Steve that no one else could hear. But isn't it interesting that that's not how we communicate? That's not how the inventor chose for us to communicate. And it turns out that if the speed of sound were higher, we would communicate directionally. And yet God tuned the speed of sound exactly so that we could communicate omnidirectionally. Well, why would he have done that? Why didn't he make us communicate unidirectionally? And I would like to say that it speaks to the character of the inventor, that the inventor wants us to live together in community, to share in community. And so he tuned our world so that we would be able to communicate communally. Could it be that there is a great inventor? And could it be that that great inventor desires for us to be in awe and wonder of his invention? You know, one thing I've always been fascinated with is music, and particularly the character of music. And I think this says something about the inventor. Now, here's something interesting. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but music has no real purpose. From an evolutionary standpoint, here, Adam, help me with this. From an evolutionary standpoint, we don't need music. It's not like we need music to find food. And yet, we are hardwired to love music. And I have to ask the question, well, why? Why is that? So, I have a demonstration here, and I need two volunteers who are good at mental math. Early in the morning. Two volunteers good at mental math. All right, come on up in the blue shirt. And I need one more amazing mental mathematician. Okay, come on, Ryan. All right, awesome. Uh-oh, I got two small people. Okay, it's going to work out. All right, Katie, come on up. Oh, actually, I don't need you yet. Never mind. Oh, no, Katie, I need you. Just not right now, later. Okay, all right, so here's what I'm going to do. This thing right here is an LED spectrum analyzer that we built for Maker Camp. And what it does is each of these LEDs turned on when they hear one frequency or one pitch. So each of these LEDs represents one pitch, okay? So if you're quiet, they all turn off. Now, here, watch what happens. When I play this note, wait, what's your name again? I forgot. What's that? Neil. Okay, Neil, come over here and point to the LED that turns on when I play this. Do you need a hint? Oh, it just got stuck. Here. Watch. You can't see it. Come over here. Stand right here. Open your eyes. Okay. And then you point right there. Good. Okay. Now, awesome. You see it turning on? No? What's wrong? Let's back up a little bit. Okay. All right. It's all right. Really? That's weird. That's not supposed to happen. All right. It kind of did something weird in first service, too. I don't know what the deal is. All right, one more time. All right. Well, oh, there we go. You see it right there? Okay, so anyway, point it there, right there. Okay. Now, Ryan, I want you to point at this one. Okay, you ready? Oh boy, yeah, stand on the stage. Okay, great. Now, Neil, read that frequency right there. Read that frequency right there. What is it? You need to go up a little bit. Read that one right there. What is it?
349.
And what's the letter there?
F4.
F. So that is the note F. And Ryan, read the frequency next to yours, F5 right there. What is it?
598.
Okay, 598. So these are two Fs separated by one octave. And what is the mathematical relationship, you whizzes, between 349 and 698?
That 698 is double 349.
Double. Exactly double. Good job. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, give them a round of applause. Here's the thing. Notes separated by an octave are exactly double in frequency. Now, it gets more interesting. So, let me play two notes and tell me, wait. Okay, here we go. Hold on a second. Okay, tell me if these sound good or bad. Good. There's like one person. Okay, great. Now, how about these? Bad, right? So, this is a consonant note, and this is a dissonant note. Okay, now, so Neil, keep your finger on there. That's this one, okay? Now, Ryan, find this one for me. C, go up one. Right there, okay? And tell me the mathematical relationship. So we have 349 and 523 right there. 523.5. Do you guys see a mathematical relationship between those two numbers? This is a hard one. 349 and 523.5. Does anybody see a mathematical relationship between those two numbers? Good idea, but it's not 1/4. Let me give you a hint. 1.5 times, least common multiple. Least common multiple. So those numbers, it is 1.5, but those numbers share a least common multiple, and it turns out that their least common multiple is 1,047. Okay? So for all you math whizzes, go home and think about that. All right, now look at these two. So Ryan, find this one. You see it right there, G4? See it? Now, if you look at G4, if you look at F4 and G4, 349 and 392, you'll find that there is no least common multiple of those two chords. And so it turns out that these sound good because they share a common multiple. And these sound bad because they share no common multiple. Here's what's fascinating. You see, without math, there is no music. And just for the record, without music, there is math. But without math, there is no music. And I want to ask the question, why? Why? Why do we love music? And why is there this intimate relationship between math and music? Because there's no obvious reason why they should be related, and yet they are. And I would like to muse that perhaps the great inventor built a relationship between math and music with the hope that one day his invention would discover that relationship. And his invention would look at that relationship in awe and wonder and step back and think, what a great inventor that we have, that would leave this thing for us to find and discover, that we could be in awe of. Let's give Ryan and Neil a big round of applause. Now, in my work as an acoustic engineer, I'll tell you, there's nothing that I'm in more awe of than the most advanced acoustic technology in the world, which, if you didn't know, you have right now, and you've had since the day you were born, and it's not your iPhone, it's not Apple, it's not Google, it's not OK Google back there. It is on your head right now. The most sophisticated acoustic processing and sensing technology in the world is attached to your head right now. It is your ear. And I have just stood in awe and wonder at how amazingly well designed and created our communication technology as human beings is. And so I want to show you a quick video about how the ear works. Now, a little disclaimer, this video is technical, and so if you're not a technical person and you get bored, that'll be okay. Everybody else will enjoy it. So, just kidding. But as you watch this video, I'd like to encourage you to be in a posture of awe at how incredibly sophisticated your ear is. So let's go ahead and play this video.
Many of us take for granted a very extraordinary organ, our ears. To understand the ear, we need to understand what sound is. The speakers you are listening to right now are vibrating, flexing in and out, causing a wave of pressure through the air. The frequency of these waves, or the speed at which the sound-creating surface moves back and forth, affects the pitch of the sound. The level of air pressure in each wave is directly related to how loud the sound is. The outer part of our ear catches these waves. It faces forward and has a specially designed structure of curves, helping us to determine the direction of the sound and also emphasize the frequencies used in human speech. Now that the sound waves are caught, they travel through the ear canal and strike against our eardrum, a thin membrane about 10 millimeters wide. Now that we receive the sound, the middle ear transfers this energy. The smallest bones in your body, the malleus, incus, and stapes, start in motion. The malleus is attached to the eardrum, and as the sound travels along, the force is amplified by leverage until it arrives at the stapes, which acts like a reversed piston, creating waves in the fluid of the inner ear. The most significant increase in pressure is caused by pneumatic amplification. The face of the stapes has a surface area of about 3.2 square millimeters, while the eardrum has a surface area of 55 square millimeters. Using this, along with leverage through the malleus and incus, the final pressure is 22 times greater than when the sound first arrived. Now we come to the most complicated part of the hearing, the cochlea. In reality, it is coiled up, but it is easier to understand straightened out. There are actually 3 chambers inside, but let's take a look at the central part. The stapes is causing pressure waves to travel through the structure. Along the inside wall is about 20 to 30,000 reed-like fibers. As the waves move along, they encounter fibers with the correct resonant frequency and energy is released. These fibers aren't actually what give us the signal that we heard something. There is a special structure next to these fibers containing hair cells. When the fibers resonate, they cause the hair cells to move, which then sends an electrical impulse to the cochlear nerve and onto the brain. Certain pitches of sound will resonate in specific locations, and louder sounds will cause more hair cells to move. Our brain interprets all this raw data, making it possible to enjoy things like music or an engaging conversation. Just to think that all of this is happening in your head right now at full speed. This is just one of the amazing systems found in the human body that go far beyond our humble human understanding.
Now, I want to say I think that is an incredible creation. And as an acoustical engineer, I've developed such an appreciation for the way that your cochlea works. Let me explain why. You see, one of the key things that we make as acoustical engineers is microphones. And the way microphones work are there are two metal plates separated by a short distance, and when sound hits the top plate, it vibrates. And when it vibrates, it sends out a little electrical charge that we amplify. But there's a problem. You see, two metal plates, when you put them together, they have what's called a natural frequency, or one frequency or one pitch at which they work the best and they work most efficiently. Now, you can imagine that that's a problem, because if this microphone only worked at one pitch, it would kind of be a worthless microphone. Maybe you've tried at some point to hit a tuning fork, and it makes just one pitch. And that's because it's resonating very efficiently at its natural frequency, in this case of 220 hertz. And so what acoustic engineers do is we're always trying to kill the natural frequency of a microphone and make it work at all frequencies, so that they can hear all kinds of things. But in the process of doing that, it turns out that we actually make the microphone much less efficient. It works much less well. Now, God's design, I think, is phenomenal. Let me explain how it works. I've been so fascinated by this, I decided that for Maker Camp, the students and I would build a model of a cochlea. And so here you can see a model of a cochlea. Remember, it's shaped in a spiral. And the way the cochlea works is, at the beginning, at the bottom of the spiral, it is really wide. And the wide part resonates. It has a natural frequency that's very low. And so these kind of represent the hairs. So for example, the hairs at the beginning of the cochlea respond to really low frequencies, right? And they wiggle, okay? And then Katie, come on up. And then as you go up, the hairs begin to respond to higher and higher frequencies. So this hair responds to kind of middle low tones. And then this hair responds to a little bit higher. And then this hair responds to higher still. And then this hair responds to the highest. Now, here's what's fascinating about this. Remember, I told you that as acoustical engineers, we're always struggling with trying to kill the natural frequency of a microphone, which has one sensing element in it. But your ear has the equivalent of tens of thousands of microphones packed in a tiny space. And each one of those little microphones is working precisely at its resonant frequency, precisely at its natural pitch. And so they're each able to operate incredibly efficiently. And that's why your ear is way better than a microphone. Your ear has better frequency selectivity, better dynamic range. It uses less power. It lasts longer than anything we can build. And the most amazing part is, it is made in the womb of a woman. I mean, it's incredible. That's one of the many reasons I like women. So it is so amazing. It blows my mind. And you are hearing through it right now. So, I think as you think about that, you have to ask the question, is sound just a bunch of vibrations? Are we just a bunch of atoms? Are we just a bunch of electrical connections? Or is it possible that there is more? And so I'd like to invite up, we're going to sing in 4-part harmony. So I'd like to invite up Wes, Steve, Katie, and Angie. And we're going to have a moment here where they sing for us in 4-part harmony. And we're going to do this in the dark. And as we do this, I'd like you to stop and think. Is what you're experiencing simply sound vibrations? Adam, can you turn off the speed of sound thing? Is what you're experiencing simply sound vibrations? Is it the case that what you're experiencing is vibrations in the throat of these singers coming out, creating a chain reaction of vibrations of atoms moving through the air? Those atoms eventually come and strike your ear, flow into your ear, hit your tympanic membrane. They are transformed by the stapes into the cochlea, where they make those tiny hairs vibrate, which produce electrical signals which your brain interprets. Is that all there is? Or is it possible that there is more? Is it possible that there are ways that you can hear that don't involve your cochlea and don't involve your tympanic membrane and don't involve your stapes? Is it possible that the inventor has given you a soul? And is it possible that the inventor intended to speak to you not only through your ears, but through your soul, through the deepest part of you? Is it possible that the inventor desires a relationship with you? As they sing, Adam and I are going to be swinging one of our projects from Maker Camp, the LED light stick. This is kind of an interesting creation. What this does is it listens for sound. There's nothing magic about this. It has a microphone and it detects vibrations in the air. And when it hears low sounds, it turns blue. When it hears middle pitch sounds, it turns green. And when it turns high pitch sounds, it turns red. Nothing spiritual, nothing magic, just sound waves and vibrations and electrons. So Adam and I are going to swing these, and I want you to watch these forming different colors as the different parts of the four-part harmony combine, and ask, is this all we are? Electrons, sound waves, or is it the case that there could be more?
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
Well, I'd like to suggest this morning that perhaps there is a great inventor. And perhaps that inventor desires to share in relationship with you. You know, you might have noticed there's a big thing on the stage. This is a human hamster wheel music box. It's an idea that sprung up in our team's mind some 6 or 8 months ago. And we got together with one of our members, Lindy Dunaway, who is a master craftsman. And we had this idea and we thought, could we build this thing? And Lindy sat down and began to work on it, and he labored for hours to create this thing. Now, here's what's so fascinating about this. You know, this human hamster wheel music box has no real purpose, right? It doesn't solve some big problem. It doesn't solve world hunger. And yet, last week, Lindy came and he shared about the process of creation. And he said something interesting. He said that his greatest need in life is unconditional love. And so he has chosen to become a Christian so that he could experience the unconditional love of the great inventor. And he said that when he puts things together, when he practices his gift of craftsmanship, it is an expression of love to the Father. It is his way of saying thank you to the Father for the incredible unconditional love that God has given him. And something interesting happened. After Lindy finished talking, there was a big line of kids who came up here and got in the wheel and started running in it. And Lindy just stood right here and watched. And I saw this just incredible smile of joy as Lindy watched kids experiencing happiness inside the human hamster wheel. It is the case that the inventor of this thing stood there and took joy at watching his invention being used to inspire awe and wonder in young people. As we invite up the band, I want to say, perhaps there is a God, there is a great inventor today who is looking down with great joy at his invention. An invention that as he looks down, he says, we are very good. Perhaps there is a God who is taking great joy today in you, his greatest invention. Smiling as you experience the awe and wonder of his creation. And so we're going to invite Wes to get in the human hamster wheel. And we're going to move into a time of worship. And I would just like to make an offer. If today you would like to experience a relationship with the great Creator, if you would like to learn more about the Creator than you can know just by observing his creation, if you would like to be in relationship with the inventor himself and to be able to experience his passionate joy in you, his greatest creation that he has declared is very good. And not only that, he has declared that each of you were made in his image. Each of you are the image bearers of God. And if you would like to have that kind of relationship with that kind of God today, I'd love to invite you to go over to the prayer wall and spend some time praying with us. So as the band begins, I'm just going to pray for us and invite us to go into a time of worship where we can all ponder the awe and wonder of this creation that God has made for us. So Lord Jesus, I'm just so thankful, God, that you have allowed us to live in this amazing place, that you have created us and made us so wonderfully. And I'm so thankful, God, that you made us conscious enough to understand the beauty of what you created. You have made us communicate in such a beautiful way so that we can live in relationship. You have set down all these secret seeds of math and music. You have given us these ears that work so marvelously, and you have made us intelligent enough to understand how incredible your creation is. And God, this morning I want to say I think that you desire a relationship with each one of us. A relationship that is grounded in radical, profound, unending, unconditional love. God, I pray that each of us, myself included, can seek after you in a relationship of awe